Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give folks a couple more minutes to get in to the Zoom. Welcome. My name is Julie Marshall, and I'm the Director of Education here at the Texas Library Association. The Texas Library Association is thrilled this morning to be partnering with USDA Rural Development on this webinar, and we thank them for the opportunity to share this vital information with our members. We've got quite a few folks on the webinar today, and we're absolutely thrilled. With us today are Lillian Salerno, Landry Hicks, Michael Canales, and Joe Bradley. Please join me in welcoming them to TLA. And Lillian, I'm going to kick this over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. Really appreciate you organizing this. We wanted to just take this opportunity for those of you who don't know that rural development exists. We're part of the United States Department of Agriculture. We have a robust host of programs that tries to empower and create active communities in rural Texas. And one of those programs is the Distance Learning Grant, and which will be opening in the next 30 days. And we're going to have Joe Bradley discuss that opportunity. Sometimes Texas has programs where we have tons of subscriptions and some when we don't. And we wanted to make sure certainly rural libraries have every opportunity to take advantage of applying if they have an interest. And certainly if you don't know about it, you can't apply. And we just have such a great opportunity to make sure that those libraries in rural Texas have been such a, just an important part of the community, especially as exhibited during COVID. We wanted to take the first opportunity and talk to you all about this upcoming opportunity, as well as our everyday opportunities with our community facilities, loan and grant programs. And just for relevance, we have a host of programs. At any time, you can go to one of our area offices. We have 6 areas in Texas, 23 offices. We have personnel in these offices, and they can help you. And just so you know what we're talking about as far as money, I always like folks to know how much the federal government does put into Texas through the rural development programs. And if you look at this slide, that's the host of suite of programs that we have. And the state funding totals are in millions of dollars. So over the last 5 years, we put, somewhere in the $7 billion neighborhood of money into rural Texas. And that includes electric and telecommunications and water and environmental, community facilities and housing. So we're sort of the federal agency who's really targeted for rural development. And these suite of programs are somewhere, we are complicated, we're the government, but we try not to be, and we're going to try to be as easy as we can especially for this group. We probably have some new entrants that have never applied for our programs, and Michael Canales is our program director for our community facilities programs and our water programs. And we also have Joe Bradley on the phone, who's our general field service representative, a longtime employee of USDA that does a great job on outreach also, and is there to help get more applicants. Lots of us are Texans. I'm a Texan, and what I don't like is when we send money back. So we're here to just make sure that if there's an opportunity for you all to have access to these funds, that you have every opportunity to do that, and we're here to help. The slide that we have up right now is just our area contacts. We have 6 area directors across the state. Texas is big, as you know. We have the largest rural population in the country, about 4.5 million just rural residents. And these are this list of 6 of our folks are our leadership around the state. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Canales. I'm available. If you guys feel like you're not getting what you need, reach out to Michael or I or to Joe. We want to be there for you. We also have some technical assistance providers around the states that might be able to help you all. We're all interested in making sure you all have the resources to do your jobs, because I know a lot of you operate on shoestring budgets, and if there's a way for us to help, we're here for that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Canales, and thanks so much for joining here today. Michael?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Thank you very much for that. My name is Michael Canales. I am, as the state director mentioned, I am the community programs director for the state of Texas. As she mentioned, also, I oversee all the water and wastewater infrastructure programs, as well as the essential community facility funding opportunities that are available throughout the state. My staff and I here in our state office in Temple are the last, I guess, point where applications are received and are submitted to the national office for funding, or are funded here locally within our loan approval authority for projects across the state. So community facilities is one of the programs that can assist libraries and educational type facilities with their financial needs. Under community facilities, we have four main umbrellas of financial opportunities, and that falls under public health, public service, public safety, and community service and education. So libraries and the funding opportunities for them could fall under two. They could fall under the education type umbrella, or they can fall under the community service type deal. So I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of the different funding opportunities that are available under the CF program, which is the community facilities program, just to give you some idea as to what we can do, some limitations, some expectations on eligibility and things like that. I know this is primarily going to be a distance learning and telemedicine grant call. So my funding, or the funding available under the CF, can supplement that type of deal with more on the equipment and the facility side. So starting off, as you see those programs that are available there on the screen, our main program is our Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. That program, as with most of the programs, are available to cities and towns or municipal government type deals of less than 20,000 in population, as well as nonprofit entities, districts, authorities, and things like that that are located in a city or town or an unincorporated area of less than 20,000 in population. Under the direct loan program, and I know loan is not the word of the day or the choice word to use when we talk about funding for libraries and in small rural communities, but that's where we have most of the funding available. As the state director mentioned, the issue or the concern we have is Texas is a big state. We should have multiple opportunities in sending money back. Under the community facilities programs, we have on average about $75 million to fund projects under those five levels of funding that I mentioned. Again, public health, public service, public safety, community service, and education. We have an abundance, as I mentioned, of loan dollars available for that. So what can we do under that program, as well as the grant program? As I mentioned, the eligible entities need to be located in cities of town of less than 20,000 in population. And the purpose of the funding would be for, it can be for new construction. It could be for the development of a facility itself. It could be for renovations of an existing type facilities. And we're talking primarily, libraries today. So when we talk about construction, we're talking about brick and mortar type buildings, renovations of existing structures, again, as I mentioned, and also potentially the funding opportunities for various pieces of equipment, upgrades to systems. Even you're looking at potentially some situations where we will be able to replace equipment and key pieces of communication type equipment that may go hand in hand with some of the DLT, or the distance learning and telemedicine funding opportunities that Joe's going to speak of. So when we talk about funding, again, the loan is going to be the most the program with the most funding availability. We also have a grant program that's tied into that, or can be separate from that program itself. So when we look at grants for particular types of either construction or equipment, or for libraries, for instance, shelving and furniture, fixtures, equipment type funding, we have the funding opportunity to make some grant available to eligible entities. The problem with the grant funding as opposed to the loan dollars is the amount of money that we get per year. On average, we were getting about $800,000 in grant dollars and grant monies every year on average, and that does not go very far when we talk about projects that are very critical for the development of a community and for the I guess the mental and economical well-being of the residents of the local rural community. $800,000 doesn't go very far. What we try to do with those $800,000 is spread those around the state for the projects that are most needy and that are going to benefit the most folks within the communities. And just to let you know about those grant dollars, I mean, grants are made in increments of 15, 35, 55, or 75% based on the population of where the facility is going to be located and the median household income of the service area. So when we make these types of grants, we're typically looking at smaller type projects, again, equipment, maybe something that's going to deal with some minor renovations, upgrades to a facility, new shelving, new desks, new tables, things like that, AV type equipment, stuff like that, that will fall under this grant deal versus a long-term 40-year loan for a new construction type facility. And that's the direct loan and grant program. We also have a guaranteed program, and a guaranteed program is basically a lender-driven program where the entity or the applicant will reach out to a lender, a local lender, if not a national type lender, to obtain funding for instance, new constructions. Typically, those projects are going to be the bigger ones. Where they might need a new building, a new structure itself, or some severe or major renovations to a facility. Under that guaranteed program, the lender is going to be the one who applies for a guarantee to the entity, and the funding is directly made to the applicant from the lender. So it's a commercial type loan. The difference between that and our direct program is the population threshold for that program goes up to 50,000. So we have the opportunity to fund projects in more urbanizing areas versus rural. And included in that is also the opportunity to refinance some existing debt that a library, for instance, may have on the books for some period of time at reasonable rates. The community facilities program also has different funding opportunities that are lender driven as well, or can provide technical assistance and training. As you see on the screen there, that Economic Impact Initiative grant, that's a separate funding opportunity that also is available to libraries and other types of nonprofit organizations. The difference between that and our regular grant program is that to be eligible for this type of program, you must be in an economically distressed community that has a not employed rate of greater than 19.5%. So under the Economic Impact Initiative, you can do the exact same thing as you can do through the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. It's just open to communities that are more, again, economically distressed and have a higher unemployment rate. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about these other ones that are available there on the screen, and some of those may not necessarily directly impact or be available to nonprofit organizations, but there are different funding opportunities that could be available, or the services that are received through the eligible entity that receives these funding could benefit libraries as well. Also, there's a relending program that the agency has that is a program where the funding is awarded to a bank or some sort of a fiduciary type organization. They end up relending to eligible entities similar to what our program guidelines are. It's just another avenue of funding when funding does run short or there's a high competition, oversubscription on these other funding programs. If there's an entity that has received some relending funds, then they could also do similar types of funding to local entities for construction and equipment type purchases as we could there. There's also the ability to receive some assistance from the CF Technical Assistance and Training Grants. We have several organizations that are currently technical assistance providers that are able to assist small communities, small applicants with application processing, financial, managerial, and technical type training. If there is a need for some technical assistance and training, we can reach out to some of those and make some referrals so that the library or the small community can get some type of assistance by way of, again, financial, managerial, technical, and training. One of the other community type funding opportunities that you can see there on the screen is the Rural Community Development Initiative Grant. Those are not specifically for construction type deals. Those are more of a pre-development planning, community type, looking forward, developing some sort of executive plan and summary on how the community and the facilities within those communities are going to be developed and how they're going to utilize each other for the benefiting of the community. Under the RCDI, or that Rural Community Development Initiative Grant, an applicant receives funding from the agency that can provide services to, for instance, libraries, homeowners, businesses, things within the community by way of again, strategic planning. So community facilities, again, as I mentioned earlier, is one of those programs that's all encompassing. We've got some main focuses that we deal with there. One of the deals for us being on the call today, again, is as State Director mentioned, as I mentioned earlier as well, is that we can feed off of those needs that are not met through a distance learning and telemedicine grant funding opportunity. Again, you'll hear more of those shortly from Joe Bradley, but if something that can't be done through that program under the Rural Utility Service, under the Rural Housing Service, which CF is under, we can meet that gap and shore up some of the differences in funding opportunities and availability of monies to make your project worthwhile and benefit the most residents within your community. So in a nutshell, that's the CF program. We'll be available, or I'll be available at the end of the call also to answer some questions. It is an application process. Some of these applications have a window of funding opportunities, or at least an application period to apply for. But just to let you know, under the Economic Impact Initiative Grant and the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program, as well as the Guarantee Program, the applications are accepted year-round and are ongoing. If we can't fund an application one fiscal year for the lack of funding, then we just carry it over to the next one, update some of the financials, update some costs, and just continue forward with those applications. So the opportunity to receive some funding for that is ongoing. As the State Director mentioned, we have 23 area offices and my staff here in our state office who can assist with the application processing and the monitoring and the pushing forward of that application, so that the funding can be can be awarded as soon as possible. So again, I'll be here at the end of the conversation to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. And if folks have questions, we're going to answer them all after Joe presents. Just one question, Michael, are any of these where someone needs to get a grant in within the next 60 days, or these are just ongoing year-round? Or any of these have deadlines that these folks need to know about?
So the main ones, the Economic Impacts Initiative and the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program, those are annual programs. We receive our appropriations when the budget passes, and so we spend until we are done, and hopefully be able to tap into some national office reserves and continue funding these applications throughout the fiscal year. So the best thing to do is get your application in line. As you may or may not be aware, we were operating under some continuing resolutions, so we should have some funding available right after the first of the year to start funding projects. But the application window is ongoing.
Great. Well, thank you, Michael. And
yes,
we're going to turn it over to Joe Bradley, who's actually based in Abilene, works all through the state, and I think he has another state. So he's got a huge workload, but is somebody who really cares about folks getting the money that Congress has appropriated to us. So he's going to talk about it hasn't opened yet, but the upcoming grant opportunity that will be opening up in January, which was why we were trying to get this webinar set up. And so thankful to Julie and the association for setting this up so people don't miss this opportunity. So Joe, do you want to start?
Sure. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. It's even better. Next slide, please. So my name is Joe Bradley. As Lillian said, I'm based in Abilene. I cover all of Texas under the telecommunications program, as well as parts of Oklahoma and at one point even Wisconsin, I guess. So I'm not bored. So what I want to do is enforce is that the program isn't open right now. And so the regulations that are there on our website are not the updated 2024 timeframe. But nonetheless, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and sign up for notifications so you can get alerts for either webinars that's going to be happening. And we look at this as being maybe sometime in January, February of next year, hopefully. So sign up for the alerts. That's going to be critical. Webinars, notifications, announcements, and et cetera. What's on the website right now is a 2023, and that's super important. It really is to get up to speed on what the program's all about, the flavor of the program, the verbiage, and et cetera. That I can only do is help. And there's a 2-hour webinar posted on there, as well as the application guide. And then if you wanted to get some ideas of what other people have used over the years under this program, you could go to that same website under To Apply tab, and there's a listing of hundreds, if not thousands of applications and things of this sort, the details in general, as well as the cost. And so if you want to get ideas of how to use it, what to use it for, et cetera, it's all available there. You can also give me a call as well. The information is going to be at the last slide. Next slide, please. So in government ease, the definition of what distance learning is and telemedicine is listed there. Basically, it's from rural to rural points, and what we classify as rural under this program, like Michael indicated, is what we classify as rural is 20,000 population and less. Anything more than that is non-rural, wouldn't score high enough to get the award. But you can also have, for example, a hospital, a regional hospital, a large metropolitan area, which is where they happen to be, as well as maybe a college or university, things of this sort that you want to access. Although you wouldn't score any points because of the reality of it, you would score it based upon the rural areas you're going to. Next slide, please. This is historical national numbers. This program is nationally competitive. As you can see in 2023, we were fairly active. 288 applications, 170 million requested nationwide, and we're still in the process of awarding the grants that came in over the last few months. But one of the important parts is up on top where it says funding type. It's a grant, but it's got to primarily benefit rural areas. And last year's funding was $50,000 to $1 million. 15% of that has to be, or the grant amount has to be match. Must include hub and end user sites in rural parts of Texas. You can submit it through grants.gov, and it will open up sometime in January, February, I hope, if not sooner. Next slide. One of the things and we've had applications that from individual sole proprietorships or individual people, but the problem is that under this particular program, it's got to be incorporated organization, for-profit, nonprofit, Indian tribe, tribal organization, state, local unit of government, or a consortium as defined under 1734.3. It's in the application guide. And you also must operate a rural facility or deliver distance learning and telemedicine services. Then finally, and this is super important, is each applicant must provide written evidence of legal capacity to contract with RUS to obtain the grant and comply with applicable requirements. All of that listed up top there. Next slide, please. Minimum reality. You have to have at least 20 points in order to go ahead and be scored. Now, each location. What? Hello?
Joe, we can hear you.
Location, okay. Wasn't sure what was going on there. So minimum reality score is 20 points, and that's required. In each site location that you would go after has a points based upon the reality of that community. Matching contribution of at least 15%. Tribal government resolution or consent if you're working with tribes. Any non-tribal applicant, you have to provide that information that shows that you are in contact with them and there's a resolution to that effect. Minimum grant amount, 50,000 to 1 million. That may go up in the next round, not sure. Next slide, please. What's available and what's eligible? Acquiring, installing by lease or purchase eligible equipment if lease cost for the 3-year grant is eligible. All equipment for the project must be new and non-depreciated. So if you have equipment that's stored in your warehouse and you haven't used it for a long time, where it's old equipment, it can't be counted. Purchases of extended warranty, site licenses, and maintenance contracts is eligible. Acquiring, developing instructional program that is capital asset, it's already on the market. So what we've had in the past is people submit something that they wanted to develop a piece of software. It's got to be already on the market. We'll also pay for the providing technical assistance instruction for eligible equipment, up to 10% of the grant. That's for the vendor to install and/or technical assistance for the, running the equipment, et cetera. And this is sort of an interesting part of it, is that about 3 years ago, they included this, which is sort of handy, especially in very rural areas where there may not be broadband capable services available. We will actually pay for up to 20% of the grant amount for broadband. What do I mean by broadband? It could be fiber extension from a provider. It can be microwave, point-to-point. It could be point to multi-point wireless. Anything that's going to enable you to provide broadband in support of this DLT grant, up to 20%. And that's an important factor. Next slide, please. Monitors, computer hardware, audiovisual, broadband facilities, if you own the facilities. In other words, you can't pay somebody, the local cable company or a telephone company, whatever, to install that facility and then them own it. You have to own it. Cybersecurity software is also included. And the important part on the very last one here is whatever you're proposing to do, it must demonstrate the predominant use, 50% or more, of every line item in the grant meets the grant definition of distance learning and telemedicine. So if you wanted to get a computer and you wanted to get an office that wasn't really involved in DLT and et cetera, it wouldn't be part of the definition of this use, which is 50% or more. So it would be kicked out. Next slide, please. Ineligible elements, application preparation costs, salaries, wages, or employee benefits, operating and recurring expenses, including broadband connection fees, the recurring monthly charges that you and everybody else on this phone gets. Equipment not having telemedicine or distance learning as its essential function. Cost incurred prior to RUS receipt of the complete application. Building construction, renovation, this is where Michael's side of it comes into play. They can't lean upon each other when it comes to awards, but you can talk with Michael, see how you can, if they needed to build a wing onto a particular library or a clinic or whatever it may be. That's something that you'd have to talk with Michael about, but we can't do that under DLT. Also ineligible is duplicate facilities already providing DLT services in parity with what you're proposing to do. Projects whose sole objective is to provide a link between sites. Its purpose, again, is for distance learning and telemedicine. It's just not a link to continue or expand your other businesses. And then, of course, any purpose not specifically contained in the 7 CFR 1734.21. You can take a look at the application guide that's on the website now, but please, and I say this because I actually have said it across from a person that submitted something, but they used, and they failed at it, but they used the wrong year application guide. It was like a 4-year-old application guide. So just make sure that you use the most current one. And if you get any questions about it, of course, you can always contact me. So some of the things that you want to look at, these are key elements. It's a nationally competitive program. So anybody from New Hampshire to wherever it is, you're in competition with them, not just in Texas. Rurality objective, up to 40 points. The minimum, depending upon the population size, it goes from 20 points all the way up to 40 points. Economic need, based upon poverty. So picking and choosing your location and how your application basically is delivered and wants to deliver to rural America is going to be real key. Or as I've been told before, is that a good analogy is study to the test. Get those points in so you can go ahead and be in a competitive environment. Special consideration, this is the part that may change, typically does every year. Tribal lands, farm workers, distressed communities, it may or may not change, but typically over the last few years, we've included this in, and it's a 10-point maximum. Need for services and project benefits, subjective. This is an area that I tell people when I meet with them and talk with them on the phone, tell the story. We don't know what you're trying to do. So explain to us why this is important, what the benefits are going to be, what the needs are, but just tell the story. Next slide, please. Hints and suggestions. I score these. I don't score the ones in my region. I'll score New Hampshire or Pennsylvania, whatever it may be. But these are the elements that always seem to be a gotcha. Identify grant writers and staff as well as match fund sources as soon as you can. And basically get your team together and coordinate amongst each other. Identify the purpose and scope to maximize points. If you're not getting points, frankly, all you're doing is fill out a large government application, and you want to, win one. So you really want to focus in on that. Sounds, odd, but I've read a lot of these, and it's like that they didn't understand that the points were the defining factor. Review last year's webinar and application material to get up to speed on purpose and scope. There's webinars, past webinar there. There's application guide. You can always, once you set through that 2-hour webinar, 2+ hour webinar, you can always give me a call and say, Joe, I wasn't quite sure about this. But also keep in mind that it's entirely possible that there could be some gotchas, there are changes from 2023 to 2024. I don't know what those are. Also, and I see this a lot, to where somebody that wrote up the narrative didn't look at didn't seem to look at the budget and or the other elements, rurality and et cetera. Do an internal check before you submit the application, and take as much time as we can possibly do. Typically, it's a 60-day open period, but take as much time as you can to go do an internal review. That is so important, and I can tell you right now, I've seen a lot of applications that one section didn't make any sense to the other section, and they need to do that for the points. Next slide, please. And again, here's my contact information, email. Shoot me an email, give me a call. I can kick things around. If you want to have another meeting like this with other staff that are on your grant consultant and things like this, I'll be more than happy to do that. Lillian, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate your time. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this early is once we don't have any control over when the NOFA, the notice of opportunity for the grant comes out, but we do know that it's a 60-day window, and that's just a pretty quick window if you've never seen this stuff. So that's why we wanted to get you all before the holidays. Our thinking is it's going to come out in January, maybe February, but we only know one thing. Once it comes out, we can't say stop and let us educate all of our awesome Texas rural libraries. This is why we wanted to give you that information. We'll also make a commitment to coordinate with TLA's group and make sure you have it as soon as we know it also. So Landry, if we can make sure of that, but I'm sure there's some questions. If you'd like to put the questions in the chat, Landry can just start reading them. We can also do follow-up, but first just really wanted you to know, I mean, it looks complicated because it is complicated. It's just you all are doing such good work where I've been to enough rural libraries to know you're already doing this. I think you're meeting a lot of the criteria by some of the connections you're doing, that you all sort of were at the front of COVID and had already put a lot of great stuff together. If there's some way for us to help get y'all more access to resources, that's what we're about. So Landry, you want to read some questions? And thank you again, Joe and Michael, for doing that. I just wanted to really thank TLA for putting this together, and you all joining and giving us really an honor to get in front of you and let you know about our programs.
And
So,
Lillian, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
You are absolutely correct. It sounds like 60 days is a lot of time, but I'm here to tell you it's a lot of information. And the sooner that we can get folks up to speed on what this means and what the possibilities of doing this or that, or submitting just a rock solid application, that's my goal. However I can do that to help.
And also our goal is to fund more Texas projects. And, you know, in some of those, it may be Joe works for the national office, but I don't. I work for Texas, and so does Michael. But we also wanted to, if you don't get this one, at least you'll be in the mode, maybe thinking about some of Michael's programs under community facilities that, you know, aren't going to be open at the same time. So we'll take a few questions. Landry, if you don't mind reading them.
Yes. First, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll read the question, and then Michael or Joe, as it pertains to each of you, you can just jump on and answer. So the first question I see in the chat is, if awarded, will grant funds be dispersed after expenditures? Would it be a reimbursement type of situation?
So I'll take that with regards to the community facilities program, and again, that one dealing with either small pieces of equipment, minor upgrades to facilities under the grant program, or even through the loan as far as new construction. But with regards to the grant, funds cannot be reimbursed on this program. Basically, if you had the funding available to take care of those expenditures prior to the application process or the award, then that's it. All bets are off. Basically, you're able to fund those on your own. Typically, we like to wait and see after an application has been received. We get a preliminary cost estimate, then we can do some agreeing to, yes, you can spend X number of dollars for this particular purpose. That's part of your original scope of the project until the funding is awarded. But typically, no, if the funding is or if the expenditures have already been done prior to the application and you're looking for reimbursement, then that's not going to be an eligible cost.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, I do. So under DLT, what you want to do is you can submit invoices, paid or unpaid invoices, and then there'll be 30 days to get paid.
Gotcha, thank you. So the next question I see in here is, what is the formula for 15, 35, and 75%? So they're talking about the grant percentages. Is it based on population? How do we determine that?
Okay, so that's mine. That's under the CF program. So again, 15, 35, 55, or 75% grant eligibility for a particular type of project. The two things that we look at is where the facility or the project is actually located. Of course, it's got to be less than 20,000, but the smaller rural communities score a little bit higher on that. And I say score or go favorably more for a higher grant percentage. Similar to that, or in line with that, is that the median household income of the service area, not necessarily the community of where the facility is actually located. So if you got a library district and the library district may be more the boundaries of a library district may be more than the corporate limits of a community, then the median household income of that entire service area would be taken into consideration for figuring out what the grant percentage is going to be. So those go hand in hand. So you can't have one without the other. It's either typically the 75% grant eligibility looks at about 5,000 or less in population, with the median household income being at 60% of the state non-metropolitan median household income. So smaller communities with the lower incomes are going to score higher, are going to be, eligible for more grant potentially. So if I got a community that's 19,000 in population and is at 90% of the median of the state, they would be at the 15% threshold.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
Next question is an independent school district eligible as an applicant for the distance learning telemedicine grant?
Absolutely.
Joe, could you give us an example of a school district? If you have one off the top of your head.
Well, we actually have several educational service districts that have gotten grants over the years. Liberty Central School District, Lamar University. There's 20 just over the last three or so years. So yes, independent school districts can apply as long as you meet the criteria. Profit, nonprofit, depending upon what the application is about, and if you wanted to include tribal areas and et cetera. But yes, absolutely yes. Independent school districts, colleges, universities, and not only that, telemedicine. If you pretty much anybody, especially with COVID, but pretty much anything that you put a tele in front of is going to work. I've seen telepsychiatry, teleradiology, school for the deaf. And so it's real flexible. You just have to, again, tell your story. That's the important part.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
So let me chime in there. As far as under the CF program, school districts, independent school districts are also eligible for that under the CF program for funding as well. We've had some situations where we've actually used a school district and have done some upgrades and provided different pieces of equipment for the inside or the normal operations of the library, and updated shelving and racks and things like that.
Great.
Okay, the next question is there a list of projects that have been funded in the past?
Well, for the DLT program, yes. On the slides, there's a link to the DLT website. It has summaries of projects dating back for 10 years plus. And what it does, it gives a little snapshot of what its primary purpose was, what it did, whether it's medical or educational. And if you can't find it or you're having difficulty finding it, just give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll be more than glad to walk you through it.
And I just wanted to say, we will be sending a copy of the slide deck out to everyone that was registered on the meeting. So you'll be receiving those, and that will have the links available as well. Now, the next question we have is for the USDA Learning and Telemedicine Grant. Would assistive devices for people who are deaf be eligible? And I think, Joe, you might have answered that already.
Yes. Anything that you need relative to meeting the requirements of the DLT program and connecting from large metropolitan areas where the additional resources are to where it's needed in rural America, generally speaking, that's available and we would fund it. And again, you have to look at the guide and making sure that what you intend on using it for is 50% or greater predominant use for the DLT program.
Thank you. Then we have, does the distance learning have to be only for telemed services?
No, it can be, and this is actually one of my pet peeves. I try, I lobbied to change the title. It should be, in my view, it should be distance learning and or telemedicine. It can be one or the other or both in the same application.
Thank you. Michael, one for you real quick is, does that mean that the grant portion would cover 75% and the institution cover the other 25%?
Sure. And the opposite number, the opposite of 15, 85% or the 45 or the 25% would be the matching component that the entity or some other organization would need to make the project complete. So whatever our grant is, the difference between that and the complete project needs to be the matching funds component. It needs to be a matching fund component of some sort, or even a small loan by the agency to supplement that and complete the project out. So if somebody was eligible for 75% and it was a $100,000 project and we were able to give them $75,000, then the $25,000 difference would be their match to the project.
Great, thank you. So we have two last questions and then we're going to turn it over to TLA, but just so everyone is aware, you can email myself, Lillian, Michael, or Joe Bradley, and with any other questions you have, and we'll be happy to help you. So one of the last ones is, in 2024, we will begin renovating an existing building. Would automatic doors to replace the existing entrance doors be an eligible project?
For the CF program, and I'll take that, that would be upgrades to the facility. Automatic doors would most likely be some sort of like a ADA compliance issue kind of thing, as well as convenience. Those would fall under repairs and renovations of existing structures under the CF program.
Thank you. And then our final question is, she heard the term fund matching. Can you explain a little bit more what the matching funds entails?
All right, so for the CF program, that's just what I indicated a little while ago. It's the difference between the total project cost and the grant eligibility. I think it's a little bit different on the DLT, and I'll let Joe talk about that.
So under the BLT program, it's 15% of the requested grant amount. So if you requesting $1 million, that'd be 15% of that amount, $150,000. That you would have to come up with cash relative to supporting the project itself. And you're going to need and you can get that from basically foundations or whoever you normally get your funding from, or it could be the applicant itself. But nonetheless, you have to show by a letter signed by the person that can authorize such things that that money is going to be available.
Thank you very much. So now I'll turn it over to Kelly with TLA, and she'll close us out.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really special to have this collaboration, and it is clear there's lots of incredible information. We will send out the PowerPoint. I know that was probably the biggest question, is do you have access to these links? And absolutely, we will get you all that information and the recording as well. I would like to close us out today with just a few friendly reminders about TLA. If you enjoyed this collaboration with the USDA, like any of these type of programs, please renew your membership. This is an opportunity that we would love to provide you in the future with this critical information that can help you guys grow as a library. As well, we would love to share with you guys that our conference is in San Antonio this year. If you have not signed up yet, the early bird pricing goes until January 31st. If you want more details about the conference, who will be speaking, we do have a few keynote speakers announced already, some very exciting ones, and the virtual program is launching this Friday. So definitely please check out txla.org/annual conference. Coming up in January, if you are a TLA member, this is free for you, so make sure you renew that membership. It is our January TLA Talks, updates from the Capitol and the courthouse. And so this incredible session. Guys, it was a very active year in Texas politics. So these are updates from Wendy Woodland about what happened with House Bill 900, federal court cases, and where does everything stand. So if that's something that interests you, please join us on January 3rd, 2024 from 3 to 4 p.m. You do need to register in order to get that link. But once again, if you are a member, it is free to you. We also have another incredible TLA Learn session coming up. As you start the new year, you're starting to think about your professional development, and we have new year, new skills, and surviving difficult conversations. So this is $20 for members and $30 for non-members, but it's an interactive session where you guys will learn. It's presented by Emma McDonald, a Texas librarian, and she will go over some key skills on how to have these difficult conversations. You will interact in breakout rooms and work through different scenarios, and it's an interactive learning session. So that will take place on Wednesday, January 23rd or January 31st from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And that is all we have for you today. And on behalf of TLA, thank you to our presenters, Lillian, Michael, Landry, and Joe. We are so thankful for you guys to provide this information to the TLA membership. And to our members that came today, please let us know if you have questions, and we will get their PowerPoint and this recording out to you as soon as possible. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy your lunch. And we will see everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.